recording the meeting, which I'm going to show you after, but this is a meeting where I'm going to be showing Matthew Price how to just work with the whole MeetingBurner system. So, welcome, Matthew, to the call, and welcome to all our listeners.
Thank you.
Of which there are none.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so here's the basic thing, is there are two things you can do. What I did is something called Meet Right Now, which you can just click on Meet Right Now. You can give it a little title, and then these are, of course, the phone numbers, which if you want to send these to someone, you just go invite participants. It gives you this little pop-up. You take that, copy it, open your email, and paste that into your email, and then you can see how it gives them the link, it gives them the conference line, and it gives them the access pin, which is the participant pin. So if they are a moderator, then you'd want to give them the moderator pin, and you can send that to them. So this would be an example if you want to just quickly say to Dan Wilt or Natasha or someone you're training or anyone that you're just like, hey, let's just do a quick meeting, and I'm going to show you about how Liturgies works. That's what you would do, is just do a quick meet right now kind of thing. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good. So closing all of that, and then you go start your meeting, and that then is going to open up something that looks like this, except it's going to give you a little thing where you've already done this on your computer. You've got to install this little app called MeetingBurner. So you install the app, and it kind of sets up an environment where you are in a screen sharing mode. And that app has to be downloaded. See, it's right there. That app has to be downloaded every time you do a meeting because it's unique to your meeting that you are having. So if you're doing a meet right now, then the people always go to meeting or worship webinars.meetingburner.com, that link that I had given you. So let me just kind of go back to it. That meet right now always goes to this because it's an immediate meeting, and it's kind of like when I, as the moderator, start the meeting, I open up this channel, and it's always at that link. If I'm doing a meeting in the future, then there's a specific ID that the meeting is given because it's not starting right now, it's given a time, but we'll go over that later. So that's the Meet Right Now feature, and then there are, you can secure the meeting with a password, and then there's various options that you can have, but it's good if you put a title on the meeting, just describe what you are doing, and that's that. Schedule a meeting is what we do with our webinars, and that's where you give the meeting a title, a description. So let's just go demo meeting and demo description for Matthew Price. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through the steps here. So the meeting date, and so let's just call it tomorrow at 12:45 to 3 o'clock, something like that. We'll go to next step. And here you've got the audio options. You would use the MeetingBurner line. So you can have up to 1,000 people calling in, and you can have unlimited numbers of people just listening on their actual, on the web. So the 1,000 is where the limit is on the conference line. And most people who are participating and taking in a webinar are just listening from their computer. But they can actually, they can log in on their computer, they can log in on their iPhone, there's an iPhone app, and they can also call in. And then if they are moderating, they put 84260, which means if they're part of the, if they're part of the presentation, they would be there, and if they're being in the attendees, they would use this. Now, when they come and register, they're going to get this number automatically, so you don't have to give them that number. But if you are inviting a moderator to be a part of this, then you would have to give them this information specifically. And you might want to connect with Charlene because Charlene is involved in kind of putting together instructions for all the webinars we're doing for Praise Charts, and it might be an idea if we come up with a standard kind of document that we always send to people who are going to be participating in webinars with us, say interviews and things like that, because there's pretty standard information that we can send. So that's that. We don't use a different conference line. Then we go into the meeting is now scheduled, blah, 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 and we can continue the configuration, which I'm going to go through that, or you can be I'm done. So here is the invitation link for that meeting, and then this is the meeting ID for the iPhone app. So if you would go into the iPhone, it would be asking you for a meeting ID, and that's the number that you would share with other people. Hey, come and join, log in with your iPhone, all that kind of stuff. And then you can use email, Facebook, and tweet to promote your meeting. But let's continue to configure the meeting.
Let me ask you a quick question about the role of the moderator. Let's say that I want to make a presentation to a group of churches, and let's say it's to the Anglican chaplain. The head chaplain would be someone who I would talk to first, and then he would be helping make the presentation.
Yes.
Do I include him if he's not a moderator? Is he able to interact?
Yep. Yes. He would be considered a moderator with you, because then you want to be able to have the option to mute all the participants without muting your moderator, the people who are meant to be included in the discussion and meant to have their voices recorded, and all that kind of stuff. So that would be like, if I'm doing a webinar with Paul Balash, Paul calls in on the moderator line, everybody else calls in on the participant line. Now you actually can have, if you had, say, a group of 12, which is small enough that you could invite in interaction, you could open up discussion for them. You don't have to have all the participants muted, but it's just an option that you would have. So, so you think of the moderator as yourself and any other key individual who is who's a part of the presentation. But that person is not necessarily like the screen presentation person like you are. You're controlling the mouse and clicking around and all that kind of stuff. The moderator is mostly a call-in. And then actually what that person would do is register themselves, like Paul would register for his own webinar, and Don Moen and whatever, so that their little name shows up. You can see down below on your screen it says your name and my name. So they actually registered for their own webinar because they're watching it as a participant, but they've got the volume set to low on their computer. They're not getting confused by the audio coming from their computer because they're participating through the phone, right? So that's very important, because what's happening is when you record a webinar, the system is recording the video from the computer, all the little things I'm doing on the computer right now, and then it's recording the audio from the phone bridge, and then it's merging those two together and creating a recording. So there's no way to interact from the computer. And I'm actually not sure if there is a way to pick up the discussion from, the conference bridge from participants. I would think it is possible that if people speak, on the participant side and they're not muted, they can be heard. So does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
This is completely off the subject, but I just clicked on, as you're talking, I'm just looking at the features. I clicked on full screen, and it went to full screen. Then I went back down to the normal size, and I had to I had to, you can see my name listed twice. I had to come in a second time.
Oh, well, I have never actually clicked full screen. I might have to explore that. So that's not ideal, but let's not go into that right now. I don't quite understand.
I just thought I'd explain to you why my name's down there twice.
No problem. Okay, so here we have the meeting profile, and there is a default profile which I think I currently have set to myself. But the profile you can see when the meeting starts going up on the side here, it says the icon, it puts an image of the key person, you know, the name, the site, and kind of what's all going on and people down there. So this kind of controls that, the profile. And then also some of the branding of the reply emails have these logos on them. So I have actually set up numerous profiles. I've got a liturgies profile, which has your page and the liturgies logo. There's a Sunrain Media one that has Debbie, a worship training one that has, so you can see how easy it is to just flip over these. If there's a generic worship webinars one, I don't have to have an image. I have this Don Mullen one, and we could do this with liturgies as well, where when I do an interview with Don Mullen, I want his face to show up here, but he's not really a profile that I'm going to be regularly using in my system. So I actually just go into the profile section and I swap out his image and make his name Don Mullen. And next time I'm having an interview with Big Daddy Weave, I'll just change this profile to Big Daddy Weave or Paul Balash or whoever the next person is. So it's kind of like an interchangeable one. So let's kind of keep it at liturgies for now and say that is the profile, okay? Then we go next. So then we ask, do you want to require attendees to register? There is a yes and no option. So if it's yes, then they have to enter their first and last name and their email address and all of that. And that can be a good idea. And if it's no, maybe it's just a quick meeting, or they just have to enter then their first and last name. And then do you require a password? So let's just say yes, we require. And then do you want to enable the meeting thermometer? So this is something that we haven't emphasized a lot, but it's this thing right here where you as a participant, you have that little thermometer on yours, and you can, like if you take it and drag it right now over to the hot or over to the cold, you'll see how it impacts my screen if you're watching. See that? And so what happens is if you had, say, 500 people on your call, they would all be doing this, and you would be getting kind of real-time feedback as to, how well you're doing as far as maintaining a sense of interest with your people. So it's kind of a fun little extra feature. And you can encourage people to do that, to say if you want to give feedback, and keep me hopping, go ahead and do that. And it will always tell you like 1% of participants giving feedback, or 50% or 25%. Often you'll never get more than, 5 or 10%. And then, at the end of the whole meeting, you actually get a report that shows you the timeline of your entire webinar and shows you a graph showing, when you were hot, when you were cold. It shows you the best 30 seconds of your webinar, the worst 30 seconds of your webinar. There's really cool features, and I will show you that. But that's where that comes from, okay? While I'm here, I might as well I know, it's really awesome. And I'm telling you, people that come onto these webinars have a really great experience. They're just like, man, this is very cool technology. So this is that, and then, there's even a webcam. So I'm going to just enable it here for myself, and you can see me. Can you see me right now?
I do.
We'll just keep that on. So there you go. That's kind of cool. And so this is just information. This always tells people what to do. Now, it's going to be unique on your site page. You're probably seeing kind of a screen within a screen right now, because you have this whole thing, wrapped around yours. and your dial-in number is going to be probably, it's going to say the other number. There's also a Skype number to call, and then there's this listen button, which is very important, that if you are listening via the computer, you'd have to press that button to have the audio on. And it's also good to know that you can minimize those sections, and then we can go into the chat area here. So I can say, hey Matthew, and you say, hey Ryan, and you might as well just do that right now so that you can see how that functions. And it's a really, are you able to do that now?
I am not. I don't.
Well, you should be able to just go over onto the left-hand side, click on the chat tab, just like I'm doing here.
There it is.
And then chat down below. Yeah.
Yep,
there you go.
It is.
Okay. So it's really cool because once you get a webinar going, people love to do that, chat thing in the sidebar. Often I will, if it's a really big webinar, I'll tell people, please introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. Hey, this is Zimbwa Kambwabi from, South Africa. And once you start getting that real international feel, it just gets very exciting to have this webinar. And then people make comments and they have their own little side thing that goes on down here. It's really fun and cool, and especially if you're talking with someone who is more well-known, then, people love to chat and make comments and, we love you, Paul, and I love your music, John, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what happens there. Then I'm just showing you here, this is my little panel, which is different than yours because I am the actual moderator of the webinar. So I've got to stop and start recording. I've got the opportunity to end the meeting, and then there's a Q&A area here. So now I want you to be a participant in it where I ask you if you want to ask a question. Now that's different than just going into the chat and just, making a comment. A question is like, I have a question that I want you to answer. So Matthew, you go up into this area where you've got that Q&A and click in there, and I want you to ask a question. So just say something like, how does this really work? And then watch what happens on my screen. There. So now I can see I've got a question that has come in. And in my webinars, often what I'll do is I'll tell people ahead of time, we're going to have a Q&A time at the end. And if you want to ask some questions, we'll collect the questions. And then at the end, we'll go through them and, and ask some of these. But nobody ever sees this. And if I click on it, nobody ever sees this. This is something that I have off on another screen. And or, you can allow people to just ask questions throughout the meeting. And then once I've answered the question, I click delete, and then, it kind of gets that away so that there's not an alert. So as I'm going through the meeting, if it's an informational meeting and you want to allow people to, to ask questions, you can just have them do it there. You see the little one coming up, and you're like, oh, we've got a question. Whatever, you answer it, and then you delete it off. Okay?
Now, I would the ask a question for especially for webinars, that's vitally important. But is it possible to turn off the chat? Because for me, that would be a bit of a distraction while I'm talking to see a stream of comments.
Well, it's something that you can get used to. It definitely is possible to disable the chat. A part of me, you just have to figure out what's best for your purpose. But I'm just telling you that in my experience, it's very possible to ignore that chat. I mean, you can you can just click on participants so that you're not seeing it. So I would recommend that you give the benefit to the people because it creates a real vibrancy in the meeting and an aliveness, and it isn't really distractive. It's fun for them, and the reality is people watching a webinar tend to want to multitask, and you'd rather have them chat here than go over to Facebook and or Twitter and have their other chat thing going on. Right. They're going to stay engaged in your world. So don't be afraid of that. but don't feel like that's something you have to monitor. That's why you have this questionnaire. This questions thing is for you. That signals they have a question for you. This is if they want to talk amongst themselves and chitter-chatter. And it's part of the culture of this. So it's good.
Okay.
Okay. So, oops. Okay, you can still okay, you can still see the screen, right? It's all good?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, continuing on then. Okay, there's me again. I'm going to go back to, so what I do is I have two monitors set up. So over there is my laptop, and then right here is my main screen. So I'm able to put this whole thing over on another screen, and then, you know, I actually have this is the whole screen that I'm sharing, and I have the ability to share different areas of the screen. So are you able to see there where it says share monitor 1, share 2, share custom region, all that? I hope that's not grayed out. It might be grayed out. Oh, you can see it. Okay,
yeah, it is,
so that's
it is grayed out.
Okay, so it's grayed out because it's part of the MeetingBurner system. So I guess I'll just say that it is there, and you can actually select a specific area of your monitor. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to share this specific area of my screen. Okay, so now can you tell that you're seeing a much more narrowed down area of my window, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's nice, because then what I do is I'll set up my PowerPoint, and maybe I'll just show you this, how I set up the PowerPoint. So open PowerPoint. And so now I'm assuming you're seeing my whole screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
well, there's still a gray box.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That's just kind of my sidebar area. But here's my Don Moen webinar. And a nice thing with these webinars too is, like, once you set one up, you get yourself a nice template, and you know, it's really easy to kind of maintain that in the future. So what I want to do is kind of I want to share this whole area, but not share this area, so that, you know, I can actually click through my webinars like this, and nobody's going to see that area. So I'm going to show you what it looks like then when I share a custom region. Okay, so I'm going to set up my so now you can see that it looks very clean to you, doesn't it? Right?
It does now, yes.
Yeah, yes. So that's because I'm only sharing that central area, and yet on my screen I can see the outside, and I can easily click to any slide that I want to if I'm talking and I want to kind of go out of order, or go, let me show you this again, or whatever. I'm just talking like that, and nobody is really seeing that. But you can see that if I bring my mouse in, you probably see my mouse, that, you know, it's all just a part of my screen. So now I'm going to go back to sharing the full monitor. So you can see the full monitor that I'm sharing. Is that right? And,
I do.
you know, and then I'll share with you my monitor 2. So that is my other monitor that I have, where I'm just able to monitor kind of the chatter and, you know, feedback and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I can also have it share just a specific window. So this would be like sharing, you're probably seeing just a limited window on my screen. So there's different options that keep it nice and clean for, you know, doing a presentation. And you want to get yourself kind of familiar with this, experiment, do a few webinars, you know, find your daughter or someone to say, okay, I want you to just get on the other side and and help me get good at this. That's what we had to do. And if you watch this webinar a few times, it took us so long to figure all this out, so you're way down the road. So back to the meeting preferences. Do you want to enable meeting thermometer, yes or no? So that's up to you. And then there's even options, hot, cold, like, dislike, exciting, boring. You can do whatever you want there. I haven't really messed with that too much. PayPal integration, we haven't done much with that, but that is very cool. We normally set that to off. But if you were doing a meeting where you only wanted paid participants to be able to attend, then it does allow for that. So I'm going to take that off, and then I go finish, and here we have the actual meeting, and I can share it. Again, if I click share by email, it's going to give me that little pop-up. Here's now the meeting, the time, the registration link, and then what happens is that when they register, they'll get an email that tells them, all the instructions and gives them a link and will remind them the day, before the webinar that, they're ready to go. So I can, go to Facebook, add it to Outlook. If I add it to Outlook, then it's going to put all this information in here. Here's those phone numbers as a reminder, the moderator pin, the attendee pin, all that kind of stuff. So now I can close that, okay, and here's my meeting, demo meeting, okay. So I can do a test run on that meeting if I want. I can manage it, which means I can go in and I want to change preferences. I want to change the name of it. I want to change all those little settings that I had gone through. I can change those, okay. So all that kind of stuff is there. PayPal is off, but none of that I really need to change. I can schedule that meeting at an additional date and time so that the recorded version of it will play, and we haven't done a lot of that yet, but let's say, for example, you want to do a meeting and it will be live at 1 and replayed at 3, then you can do that and it will handle it all automatically. So those are some different options. So action, edit, you might want to go through, play with some of these types of buttons. If I edit the meeting, I'm basically editing the actual time, and that's the main thing. And then, it would notify the registrants of the time. Watch the time zone, of course, and that's that. So, so here we've got schedule a meeting is what we just all went through. Meeting archive. These are all the meetings that we have had before, and I'm going to show you something very, very cool. Let's go to the Paul Baloche webinar. I don't see it, but let's go to the live interview with Don Moen. So I want to view the temperature of this meeting. So this gives me a whole, it's going to take a few seconds here to just generate this, but then you'll be able to see all the stats on the meeting, and you kind of get a sense of how effective you are, where people are coming from, I don't know, just all kinds of stuff like that. I'm actually going to throw, here it is. It's all coming up, so you'll enjoy this. Can you see that? The meeting thermometer?
It's a gray screen. It came up for a second, then turned to a gray screen.
Okay. Is
a
it gray
graph came
still?
up for just...
Huh. I don't know why it grays out. I'm going to put it on my other monitor here, and I'm going to switch over to my second monitor. Can you see it now?
I do.
Okay, so I don't know why that is doing it like that, but I have a little like this. Can you see that? No, that's still gray. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my little, it's almost like my little dashboard, and I can see what you can see. So sometimes it grays out. I don't know why that is. So anyways, this is my little summary of that whole meeting, and I can see, where all the people were in the world that participated in the meeting, how many there were, so I can kind of expand that map out a little bit, move it around. It's just a Google map. So isn't that cool? Like with Don Gold, 255 people came, a lot of people from Africa, and lots of people from, just a real good worldwide presence. I don't think I've ever really seen this. Then you can see the meeting temperature, and it shows you when things were hot and cold. This whole, you can see here, you can even go into that and kind of listen, what were we talking about when people were so interested. And this kind of tells you actually the hottest 30 seconds, the coldest 30 seconds was probably going to be around here. Obviously we were boring people. But it's just, it's just kind of a good summary. It's really amazing. And then the cool thing is you can very easily share that with other people. You just go send via email. So click below and I can I can send that to Don Moen or whoever was a part of the meeting, and they can go there and check it out themselves. And it's just a really kind of good feel-good for when the meeting is over. So that's that. Aren't you amazed? Isn't this awesome?
It really is. It really is. Before our conversation today, I went online just to kind of get a head start here. I found a PDF called, let's see, what is it? Conduct a Professional Meeting, put out by MeetingBurner. And they don't give the technical details you're giving, but they're giving some tips on things like don't transition too quickly, things in terms of how to be effective in your presentation.
That's
good. You want to drop that into Messenger here for you?
Yes, please do that. I would like to see that. So I'm going to show you here, when you finish your meeting, then you can watch it, schedule an autopilot, which means reschedule a live webinar where the whole thing will just replay at another time and you're not actually live, but other people can have that live kind of chat experience with it. You can send the webinar by email, embed it on a website, export to YouTube. That's something that we are doing a fair bit. If it's meant to be public, social media express content, share it on YouTube. You can download the audio, download the video, which is good for re-uploading premium content. And we should be able to have Charlene or Shelley or some of our administrative support, once you finish a webinar, they should be able to go in the back end and do some of this management stuff. And you're just pumping out webinars, and they are putting them online and dealing with that part of it. So those are the options there. These are the profiles that I have set up. So what I would do, like with the Don Moen one, I can just edit that. I can change his name to my next guy who's on. I put Don, his name, and that's kind of like it shows up. I don't know if you can see down here under the webcam. If I stop the webcam, it shows up here. That's the name, Ryan Dahl, and then BraveStarts.com. So that's kind of, I usually put either my site and where they are or else their site, and it just kind of shows very nicely right there. And then, remove the photo, upload another photo, just keep the logo, and that's all good. So that's what generally you would just pick yours. But, if you have another person that you're featuring, we would create another webinar, another profile, with the Liturgies logo, but put their image on. So that's kind of what I have done with, I've got my picture, and then I've got, sort of an interchangeable one for Praise Charts. Dan could have his picture and an interchangeable one for worship training, et cetera, et cetera. So,
now, in terms of security, a participant, are they able to, or anyone for that matter, are they able to go in and access this library of presentations?
No, you'd have to log into MeetingBurner. So MeetingBurner, like I'd go to the home page, and if I log out, I might as well do that because you're still going to be able to see that this is what you'll come to, and then sign in, and I think there you go. So I'm not going to give my password. I'll put it in the chat there so you can know what the password is. And you want to go to meetingburner.com and make that a memorized place. So I've got it right here in my little tabs that I can quickly go to. And, you kind of memorize the login. It's my name, and put that password in. And you're off to the races. So then you can see all this stuff. So just continuing.
It didn't show up.
What didn't show up?
The username and password in the chat. Is that where
I put it? I put it in MSN Messenger. You just got to open it.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So I'm just just in case other people are watching this, I don't want to.
I understand exactly.
Okay. So here we are at the. I'll just show you this thing that I actually then closed out that meeting by accident. So this is very important. And now I want to I don't want to start the meeting again or start another meeting, but I'm like, oh, shoot, we had a meeting going. Are you actually seeing my monitor still?
What I see is the screen sharing app is now running.
Okay. So I need to rejoin. I need to get it kind of back on board. Just a second. Do you now see it again?
I see what you had up before.
Is my mouse moving?
Now I see it. Yes.
My mouse is moving. The screen is moving, and all that. Okay, good. So I had to go to a place. Now it feels like I have two meetings going at the same time, and this can get. Okay, so you just have to be careful because sometimes you can get two things going, and it can get pretty confusing. But do you see in my screen here where it says rejoin meeting? See that?
I do.
Okay, so that's so that I don't want to start up a new meeting, and then I would have a new, kind of identification of that meeting, and then I'd have two separate meetings going, and the audio gets crossed, and we're all on different channels. So it's very important to go back to here and rejoin the meeting if you ever, click out of something. So I'm just going to close that. Are you still with me?
I am.
Resume sharing. Okay. Still see the monitor. Just resume sharing. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to say something else here is that this little app, which you only see as something in gray right now, it kind of tells you what monitor you're sharing and gives you a preview window of the area that your users are seeing. And it has a little checkbox in there that says minimize this window when sharing, and it's got a button that allows you to resume sharing or stop sharing. So I think if you've got enough room on your web screen, you want to uncheck minimize this window when sharing, and that's going to just make things simpler for you. And then what I do is I just put that little thing up on the corner. Often what I'll do is I'll put that there. I'll put my MSN chat here. It depends on how much room you have on your monitor, but this is what I do. And then I try and put my sort of working space over there, and I select to only display a specific area of my screen so that this whole area is outside of that, and other people aren't seeing that. So you've got to get used to your own monitor space and how you can lay things out so that you don't want people seeing the the messy clutter of your site like I'm showing you here. But that's that. Okay, I'm going to keep going through. So setting up your meeting profile, those are all the profiles. I've got Ryan as the default, but it's easy for you to just go in and select another one. And then there's a settings one here. This is kind of just a general settings thing that I have enabled. So you don't really need to mess with that too much. And back to the dashboard. I think I showed you the conference bridge. These are this is important. You get this link over here. So as a moderator, you can press *5 to unmute all the participants, *6 to unmute yourself, unlock the conference. I can't even remember what that means. And *8 to hear the number of participants. The main thing is *5 to unmute all the participants, and *6 to unmute all yourself. Okay? Those are two very important things that you want to have. Normally, if you're doing a big webinar, you want to call in and then press *6. And in fact, do that right now. I want you to experience it. Use *6. Yep, that will unmute yourself, and then press it again to bring yourself back on. And you should be able to hear that it's kind of giving you a little voice that confirms the action that you're doing. Okay, is that good? Can I hear you again? Say your voice. Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hear you. Okay. Yep, I can hear you again.
Okay.
Okay, so that is your massive, quick. I am kind of done with the amount of time that I have, but I know I have gone through all the basics. And what I would encourage you to do is go in, set yourself up a sample meeting, just try things for yourself. And then, if you want, get your wife or your daughter or your son or whoever to just, say, can you just play with me for an hour, help Daddy, do this thing, and get confident with it. And then I'd like to meet with you another time once you're like, I get it now, and then you'll be able to ask a whole bunch of follow-up questions. I had trouble with this. What about that? Blah, blah, blah. Then I think what we should do is have you prepare a webinar, and you can put the webinar on like a brief 10-minute webinar for me and Dan, and we'll call that the trial run. And it'll just be kind of very but like Dan and Natasha and me, we'll have people that are attendees and moderators, and maybe you can interview Dan and just kind of experience it as a trial run, because this is exactly what we did when we were testing all of this for praise charts. And then the super exciting thing is that, Dan and I want to involve you in this discussion, is we are going to establish this brand, Worship Webinars, which is going to be a hosting site for all the webinars that we do through liturgies, praise charts, worship training, worship view. And people will go there, and then from there they will register for whatever webinar that they want to sign up for. But we're going to kind of build this brand of, hey, I'm doing another webinar, and it's sponsored by Liturgies. Go to worshipwebinars.com and find the webinar, whatever it is that we say, or we'll give you a specific link on that Worship Webinars page. But the important thing is that people would register from there instead of going direct to need the MeetingBurner thing, because we want to help collect email addresses and create a brand for all the webinars. It's almost like it's an online school. And not to compete with worship training, but it's and then the other thing is that liturgies and worship training, the webinars will in many cases become premium content that will be paid access content. That means that when you're done the webinar, you will download the video, and then we'll upload it to our Amazon server, and it'll become a part of either liturgies or worship training. So the idea with worship webinars is it's always free to watch something live, but if you want to tap into the archive, then you have to pay to be a member of either worship training or liturgies. And so it kind of gives us a front-end attraction point to what we're doing. It's always nice to offer something for free. Come and join us. It's going to be fun. There's chat. There's laughter. It's a big party. Whatever setting you want to do. And then we just build this archive reservoir of content. And I know, Matthew, you have the potential to be an absolute content machine. I mean, you could teach every day if you wanted to, and just, many topics.
Debbie has encouraged me to create a 52-week series on the history of the church and the history of worship. And so I've actually started outlining that, because she said, I think people would, over time, you'd have people have hundreds, because so few people know the history of the church and the history of their tradition. So I've started outlining that, and I think that is something that could be premium content.
Yeah, and I want to say as well, Matthew, is that you can do these webinars, and maybe you have a dozen people that come, or 25, or don't worry too much if you don't get this massive audience, because we're archiving everything, and you might get a dozen tomorrow, but 1,000 over the next year that will watch it.
Sure.
And so we're kind of want to be in the mode of content building. And the other thing I just want to say is you, like specifically your future in liturgies is, as we've set up with our discussions with you, is like your content is going to become your quote-unquote financial future, right? So it's incumbent on you to try and just build this massive base so that we can catch up the whole, like right now we're kind of in a holding pattern where we don't have the revenue flowing in, and you don't have content that's generating revenue, so we're just, we have our relationship as we have it. But the goal is to recover all of that through your content, and then that becomes your 5, 10, and 15-year future. So all that to say, I'm just saying to you, if you can record a webinar every day, I mean, you don't have to. For me, it's for you, but don't just limit yourself to one webinar a week, because I know you have the capacity to do much more than that if you wanted to. And I'd also say, don't think that every webinar has to be an hour long. You might do a 20-minute webinar on, a specific topic. I would also encourage you to get specific with your topics and make it short, because that's how people learn online. They get bored after an hour. And for that matter, you don't have to have any participants in a webinar. You can just go into MeetingBurner and and do your webinar with nobody online. No need to schedule, no need to promote it. Just get the content recorded, and and then we'll post it. So or you can get the content recorded, like this webinar system has that ability. You can record it at 10 o'clock, on Monday night, and then set it to air on Tuesday at 11 a.m. while you're doing something else, just because you couldn't be there. I mean, that's how the system is set up. Right?
That sounds great. Well, do you want to set up a time for our follow-up?
Yeah. Like I would say, let's just go for it for next week. Okay? So I'm going to, that should be good for me. So I'm going to end this meeting now. Stop, I'm just going to show you here. I click stop recording,